How's everyone doing? Welcome back to another episode of The Banker Next Door. I am your host, Dr. Joe Berquist. So today we're continuing our conversation on, is AI profitable? We've gone through parts 1 and part 2. We're now into part 3 of this basically special series that I put together. So I want to bring something up here. So in part 1, we basically went through this blog post from PCBB called Cracking the Generative AI Paradox. And then in part 2, I basically introduce everyone here to what's known as the hype cycle. This is from Gartner, and then we'll talk about this more here in a few minutes. And then in part 2, we also went through this report from MIT called The Generative AI Divide, State of AI in Business 2025. And we talked about the divide in generative AI, what could be with this new, agentic web, or maybe if you wanted to call it web 4.0, something along those lines. But, we talked about how, different things that companies need to do. But the real barn burner in this report was the fact that it basically came back and said that 95% of businesses that have invested in AI have seen zero return, as in $0, as in nothing. Very, very shocking report. So in today's report, we're now going to look at, we saw MIT, what they had to say. Now we're going to see what McKinsey and Company have to say. Now, McKinsey and Company put out this report, and this was actually from January of this year. So this was about 9 months ago. So this was McKinsey and Company, Superagency in the Workplace. So empowering people to unlock AI's future potential. Now, we're going to go through, because again, we can't go through, it's about a 46, 47 page report. We're not going to go through the whole thing. I want to basically show you guys just the first couple pages, kind of like the executive summary. And then we're going to go down to the, take a look at the conclusion of what they found in there. So let's jump into the introduction. So almost all companies invest in AI, but just 1% believe they are at maturity. Our research finds the biggest barrier to scaling is not employees who are ready, but leaders who are not steering fast enough. So artificial intelligence has arrived in the workplace and has the potential to be a transformative, as the steam engine was to the 19th century industrial revolution. With powerful and capable large language models developed by Anthropic, Cohere, Google, Meta, Mistral, OpenAI, and others, we have entered a new information technology era. McKinsey Research sizes the long-term AI opportunity at $4.4 trillion in added productivity growth potential from corporate use cases. Therein lies the challenge. The long-term potential of AI is great, but the short-term returns are unclear or stink. Over the next 3 years, 92% of companies plan to increase their AI investments, but while nearly all companies are investing in AI, only 1% of leaders call their companies mature on the development spectrum, meaning that AI is fully integrated into workflows and drives substantial business outcomes. The big question is how business leaders can deploy capital and steer their organizations closer to AI maturity. This research report, prompted by Reid Hoffman's book, Superagency, What Could Possibly Go Right with Our AI Future, asks a similar question. How can companies harness AI to amplify human agency and unlock new levels of creativity and productivity in the workplace? AI could drive enormous positive and disruptive change. This transformation will take some time, but leaders must not be dissuaded. Instead, they must advance boldly today to avoid becoming uncompetitive tomorrow. The history of major economic and technological shifts show that such movements can define the rise and fall of companies. Over 40 years ago, the internet was born. Since then, companies including Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, Meta, and Microsoft have attained trillion-dollar market capitalizations. Even more profoundly, the internet changed the anatomy of work and access to information. AI now is like the internet many years ago. The risk for business leaders is not thinking too big, but rather too small. I would like to add a couple of major caveats to this. Number one, yes, Alphabet and Amazon and Apple and Meta and Microsoft, they made it. They were the few, the proud that made it, and it was a bumpy road. And I would remind people that right around the late 90s, Apple was about to go out of business, and a certain guy named Steve Jobs, who they fired, had to come back and had to save the day. In the early 2000s, Microsoft was not doing that hot. Microsoft was taking a lot of lumps, And Microsoft was, in danger in certain respects of going out, and then they kind of found the cloud computing, the Azure business, and began to build back. And let's not talk about the thousands of companies that didn't make it, that failed. And, because they were too early to the game or had spent too much and, fell on their face. And now I think we're at this moment. If we go back to the hype cycle here, we had the technology trigger with OpenAI, and now we're ascending very rapidly up the peak of inflated expectations. Now, once we hit the peak of inflated expectations and this thing kind of pops, we are going to come back down through the trough of disillusionment. Now, I would remind everybody what happened in the 90s. Well, the internet took everything by storm, and we had this big descent. And then we had what happened in 2000. We had the dot-com bubble bursting, and then everything came crashing back down. We had the trough of disillusionment, and it took us, it took a few more years for basically, the tech industry to kind of pick itself back up and get back up out there. And I would suggest that AI is going to follow a very similar pattern here. But let's continue here with the report, because I want to show you guys some interesting things here. So Superagency by the numbers. Employees are more ready for the change than their leaders imagine. So 3 times more employees are using generative AI for a third or more of their work than their leaders imagine. More than 70% of all employees believe that within 2 years, generative AI will change 30% or more of their work. 1.4 times more likely for millennials to report extensive familiarity with generative AI tools than peers in other age groups. They are also 1.2 times more likely to expect workflows to change within a year. Now, okay, again, I'm going to add some caveats on this. Number one is, and again, I'm sorry, I'm picking on the millennials and the Gen Z here a little bit. I don't think they could function without the AI. I think part of the reason why they're 70% more likely to use it is because some of them can't do this little thing called, read and write, which is, I hate to say that, but that's the truth. And then the other thing is that, I think, again, and this gets into the hype train of the using the AI tools, right? 1.4 times more likely to use generative AI tools. Well, what does that mean? Because, I've got OpenAI, I've got Grunk on, I've got the apps on my phone. I use them, I mess around with them and do different things with them. I've used them on my desktop or whatever, but have these things like radically altered my life? Like, no, they haven't. Do I find them very useful at times? Yes, absolutely. Can they do some pretty cool things? They can. But has this thing absolutely, revolutionized my life? No, it hasn't. And I think that, like, again, there's a big difference between somebody just messing around with something on ChatGPT and somebody that like knows how to write the algorithms and program the language learning model to, generate the kind of results through the AI that you want. I mean, there's a totally different levels of skills here that I think need to be acknowledged. So companies need to move fast. Employees trust their leaders to balance speed and safety. Do they really? Maybe. 47% of the C-suite say their companies are developing generative AI tools too slowly, even though 69% started investing more than a year ago. 1.3 times more likely for employees to trust their own companies to get generative AI deployment right than they are to trust other institutions. Interesting. Companies are investing in generative AI, but have not yet achieved maturity. Yes, just as we saw in the MIT report, we are now seeing here 92% of companies plan to invest more in generative AI over the next 3 years, but only 1% believe their investments have reached maturity. In other words, only 1% believe that it's actually generating them any money. Leaders need to recognize their responsibility in driving generative AI transformation. So 2.4 times more likely for C-suite to cite employee readiness as a barrier to adoption versus their own issues with leadership alignment, despite employees currently using generative AI 3 times more than leaders expect. 48% of employees rank training as the most important factor for generative AI adoption, yet nearly half feel they are receiving moderate or less support. I think part of the problem there is that the bosses don't understand the AI. The bosses don't understand. I mean, again, I think, have most of them messed around with ChatGPT and Grunk and Copilot and Bard and some of the other AIs out there? Yeah, I'm sure they have. But do they really understand it? Do they really understand the capabilities of what it can do? Probably not. Probably not. So this report explores companies' technology and business readiness for AI adoption. It includes that employees are ready for AI. The biggest barrier to success is leadership. Chapter 1 looks at the rapid advancement of technology over the past 2 years and its implications for business adoption of AI. Chapter 2 delves into the attitudes and perceptions of employees and leaders. Chapter 3 looks at the need for speed and safety in AI deployment. Chapter 4 examines how companies risk losing ground in the AI race if leaders do not set bold goals. And Chapter 5 looks at what is required for leaders to set their teams up for success with AI. That is all wonderful and good, but let's shoot down here to the conclusion. Okay, conclusion, meeting the AI future. So the pace at which AI has advanced over the last 2 years is stunning. Some react to that pace by seeing AI as a challenge to humanity. But what if we take the advice of Reid Hoffman? And sidebar here, I kind of hope we don't. Yeah, I don't, you know what, using Reid Hoffman in his book, just a side note, I don't think that's going to age well, okay? Mr. Hoffman, yeah, I got a lot of problems with Mr. Hoffman. Mr. Hoffman likes to hang out at a little island that we all know about. Mr. Hoffman's not a good human being. And I don't think that aspect of this article is going to age well over time, but that's neither here nor there for the moment. Let's continue. Imagine what could possibly go right with AI. Leaders might realize that all the pieces are in place for AI superagency in the workplace. They might notice that their employees are already using AI and want to use it even more. They may find that millennial managers are powerful change champions ready to encourage their peers. Instead of focusing on the 92 million jobs expected to be displaced by 2030, leaders could plan for the projected 170 million new ones and the new skills those will require. This is the moment for leaders to select bold AI commitments and to meet employees' needs with on-the-job training and human-centric development. As leaders and employees work together to reimagine their businesses from the bottom up, AI can evolve from productivity enhancer to a transformative superpower, an effective partner that increases human agency. Leaders who can replace fear of uncertainty with imagination of possibility will discover new applications for AI, not only as a tool to optimize existing workflows, but also as a catalyst to solve bigger business and human challenges. Early stages of AI experimentation focus on proving technical feasibility through narrow use cases such as automating routine tasks. Now, the horizon has shifted. AI is poised to unlock unprecedented innovation and drive systemic change that delivers real value. To meet this more ambitious era, leaders and employees must ask themselves big questions. How should leaders define their strategic priorities and steer their companies effectively amid disruption? How can employees ensure they are ready for the AI transition coming to their workplaces? Questions like the following ones will shape a company's AI future. For business leaders, is your strategy ambitious enough? What does successful AI adoption look like for your organization? What skills define an AI native workforce? And then for employees, what does achieving AI mastery mean for you? How do you plan to expand your understanding of AI? And how can you rethink your own work? So these are, these questions have no easy answers, but a consensus is emerging on how to best address them. For example, some companies deploy both bottom-up and top-down approaches to drive AI adoption. Bottom-up actions help employees experiment with AI tools through initiatives such as hackathons and learning sessions. Top-down techniques bring executives together to radically rethink how AI could improve major processes such as fraud management, customer experience, and product testing. These kind of actions are critical as companies seek to move from AI pilots to AI maturity. Today, only 1% of business leaders report that their companies have reached maturity. Over the next 3 years, as investments in the technology grow, leaders must drive that percentage way up. They should make the most of their employees' readiness to increase the pace of AI implementation while ensuring trust, safety, and transparency. The goal is simple: capture the enormous potential of generative AI to drive innovation and create real business value. So again, so there we have it from McKinsey. So McKinsey's basically big look at this thing is that basically, it's really about leadership. Leadership is not getting out in front of this thing. Leadership is not pushing this enough. Leadership perhaps doesn't have a strong enough understanding maybe of AI. And as a result, the implementations are not, going as great. I would, again, and I'm not saying that is not true, but I would point the finger back at the technology too. I think the technology itself shares some of the blame here. The technology, just as the bottom line is, the technology as of yet is not delivering on its promises. Okay, that is what it is. Leaders can push all they want. If the black box, doesn't deliver the goods, it doesn't deliver the goods. That's just that's, as Stone Cold used to say, that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold says so. Anyway, all right, so that's part 3, everybody. Like I said, when we come back for part 4 tomorrow, we're going to go into Beyond the Hype, unlocking value from the AI revolution. So with that being said, I will wrap up. I hope you're enjoying this series so far. Again, wrap up by saying, if you like this episode, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, as that always helps the channel. Remember, we are on YouTube, Rumble, and all major podcast platforms. Please be sure to leave your comments down below, as I always love getting back to everybody. And make sure to check out some of the other content on the channel. If you have not seen parts 1 and 2, please go do that, and make sure to stick around for part 4. And with that being said, I hope everyone has a great day out there. Thank you for listening. I'll see you guys again real soon.